So this presentation is kind of like a rewind. This is what I was kind of took me into this whole MIDI idea first. So we have two different folks presenting here. So me, Chris, some of you all saw earlier. So if you didn't, I'm the guy that's been bugging you with all the emails about Unconference and all of that. And I know many of the people already on this call, so that's great. And if you don't know Andrew, Andrew is the coordinator of the University of Louisville Music Therapy Clinic. So he's actually doing the role I used to do, which is great. And we work great together. So the cool part about it is this whole presentation started from my desire. And if some of y'all are going to Rich's presentation next, it actually is very related to Rich's work. You know, our philosophy a lot at Florida Hospital, which is now Advent Health at the time, was encouraging people's musicianship and especially helping people like reckon with their own primary instrument, you know, because I feel like so often people's primary instruments get kind of pushed to the wayside a little bit in therapy, unless you're voice, piano, guitar, or percussion, and even percussion, right? Like how often are percussionists really flexing their something that makes them feel like a capital P percussionist even. And that's what happened to me. I am a guitar player, so I thought about it. I was like, yes, I use guitar a lot. But when I chewed on it more, you know, and I'm telling a cellist that, hey, let's find ways to use your cello in therapy. When I'm telling, you know, someone that plays saxophone, et cetera, all these things, I realized though I was telling people that I was using mine, my real primary instrument is not classical guitar. My real primary instrument is the electric guitar. This is my comfy sweatpants that go on after Thanksgiving dinner. This is, you know, the thing that I can watch YouTube videos endlessly about. This is the thing that, you know, made me care enough about music to keep going and become a music therapist, right? That's usually most people's relationship with their primary instrument. I know it goes up and down and there's all kinds of transferences and whatnot, but the idea was, okay, well, if that's the case, then why am I not using my electric guitar? So it kind of started with just pushing myself to be more intentional with my use of the electric guitar. And this presentation is meant to be the electric guitar and effects pedals as a case study for how you use effects in general. I'm not super concerned whether or not you ever decide you need manual guitar pedals, but I hope that today will give you an overview of some things that you might already sort of know, because you're probably already familiar with some of these things. You know that reverb means kind of echoey, right? And but you might have zero idea what like compression means, but maybe you've heard of EQ. You've turned the lows and the highs up in your car and things like that. And maybe you have dabbled with some of this stuff already, more advanced than like the basic level. Either way. So that's where we're coming from with this. And we're going to kind of breeze through a full presentation that we've gone through and get into some displaying stuff. So I'm going to share over here. I'm going to share sound. And what we're talking about here is what we're talking about here is musical effects pedals, stomp boxes, guitar pedals, stuff like that. The little boxes that you'll see in a little bit. So this is by the Technic. I'm going to skip this for now because Gabby just talked a lot. Gabby just talked a lot about the Technic. So if you missed it, you can watch the recording. It's more than that little intro we did there. But why does this matter? That's what I want to start with, is why is this important at all? Well, for two reasons. Well, actually multiple reasons. Here's a little clip of us. They didn't keep the words because they were worried about copyright, but Here's the beginning of a sound clip of us rehearsing at the Boys and Girls Haven. It's a residential foster facility for mostly for individuals assigned male at birth, residential foster care facility, mostly 10 and up. So we, instead of doing the traditional, let's sit down and do a music therapy session that is talking about things or lyric analysis, we just decided from a community music therapy model, like, we're making a band. They're going to be a band. They're teenagers. They're already in foster care. They already feel othered constantly. Instead, let's let them be teenagers and learn instruments and get along with each other and things like that. So this is an example of using chorus effect and distortion in Come As You Are by Nirvana. So they switched to the MIDI version for some reason after that, but for copyright, I guess. But the reason I think this is important is because the sound, most of the time, most modern music is influenced by effects. It's been affected. Even, it's just the history of recorded music is you put a microphone in front of something and it's inherently different than being in the room. So even on a basic, even an acoustic guitar and voice is still affected. It's still, colored by what has been done, which is a great thing. But a lot of times music therapists use a lot of music in a totally acoustic way that ignores that phenomenon and is negligible at best about it. So I think it's useful in a variety of applications. Because it does things like add novelty. It could spark creativity. It can create a more authentic musicking experience. Guitar pedals and hardware in general have a tactile, a multi-sensory experience. You can learn how reverb works by turning a knob, not a dial on a computer, things like that. It's adjustable in the moment. Opportunities and solutions for a variety of experiences. And it's a gateway to learn about how sound can be processed. So this could equally be called like intro, like not really the intro to audio engineering, but like intro to effects from like the audio engineering standpoint. So I asked my buddy who helped us put this presentation together. He said, to me, pedals offer an expansive sonic palette I think of as an extension of my own instrument, and even, depending on the pedal, an instrument in itself. They inspire ideas, influence playing or singing, and can help manifest moods and spaces that are less accessible through an acoustic environment. But often they are electroacoustic. It's acoustic instruments interacting with electronics, which is what is so cool about it. So it can be just subtly affected and subtly enhanced to a different world. So it could be manipulating voice to explore identity, or a large reverb to create a cavernous space. These are things that other musicians are doing. So it's only natural as a therapist that we should consider how it could be used in therapy. So what is an effects pedal? You might have seen these little boxes. This little boss shape, this blue one, that's probably the most ubiquitous stereotype of what a guitar pedal looks like. But usually it's these little devices with buttons you step on. That's why you call them stomp boxes, or trigger with whatever, and knobs that do different things. And it's generally just an electronic device that alters the audio source through signal processing. So general categories, these are like big umbrellas: saturation, dynamics, filters, modulation, time base, and utility. And we're going to go over that in a minute. And the bulk of what we're going to do as like a workshop is talk about how does this apply to our DAWs, our digital audio workstations, GarageBand, Soundtrap, Logic, whatever you want to use. Anybody have any questions or anything so far? Andrew, feel free to ping me if people have things in the chat, okay? So typically, what's the basic that you need? You need an instrument. It could be a guitar, but it could be a synthesizer. It could be just a piano-like keyboard. It could be whatever. Because you're typically going to need a cable. It's going to go into a pedal, which requires some sort of power, usually a 9 volt. Those usually require another cable that either go to something like an amplifier or something like a computer or something capturing the audio. Those might also require power, usually, I would say. So let's talk about what this means. So Andrew, I'm going to cue these things up while you kind of talk about them. Does that sound good?
Sounds great. So this first one that he's going to cue up on the pedal board, I believe you'll also be able to see it and stuff too, on his pedal board. Yep, there it is. So I think this is a great one because saturation devices are, in my experience, a lot of what folks ask for. Like, for instance, to use the foster care home as another example. A lot of times kids will ask me, like, how do I make this electric guitar sound like a real electric guitar? And a lot of times what they're talking about is how do I add saturation, whether that's overdrive, distortion, or like all the way on the other end, fuzz to this. So you'll be able to hear a little bit of what that sounds like, but a lot of times, the Nirvana, like punk bands, will use this a lot. But yeah, I think so. You'll see actually on the screen, these are 3 pedals that we use pretty frequently. What we do is have kind of like a ready to go pedal board that has, you'll hear later about reverb, chorus, and then it has this distortion and overdrive. So parameters that you can usually adjust on the pedals include like volume, which usually kind of affects the mix. So like how loud is this distortion coming through, and that affects the overall volume as well. And then you can also develop the mix. So like often it's how much distortion am I hearing versus clean tone. And then, so I
Yeah,
think,
and I'm going to give an example right now of going from, you can think of it like a continuum, this
yeah,
overdrive all the way to fuzz. So I'm going to show you how overdrive can get that pleasant grit sound, something that like Queen or Stevie Ray Vaughan, yada, yada, might use. Then we're going to go a little bit more like distortion, and then I'm going to show you like an example of fuzz, which is where a signal has been distorted to the point of the wave shape doesn't look like a wave anymore. It looks like a square. It's chopped off on both sides. So I'm going to switch over microphone so you can hear that.
sick. We
And we're
have,
truck on, but feel free to interrupt either one of us with questions or put them in the chat.
absolutely. Or if you want to hear something specific demonstrated, then that will be a good thing to note too. If you just want to send us a chat, that would be great. But next up, we're gonna demonstrate some dynamic devices, which those can affect the volume or loudness. First, let's hear some compression. So maybe, we'll demonstrate like a clean versus compressed. So that compression a lot of times can we see this a lot if people are like really unpredictable in their playing style, which is pretty common if you're just starting to play an instrument, or if someone can kind of get trigger happy with the volume knob sometimes. Compression can allow that to even out. So what it does is just make the soft sounds louder and the loud sounds softer, so it can kind of even out the playing. Yeah, same thing kind of for the noise gate. Can kind of basically act as a really easily accessible mute switch. And I'm not sure if you have one on there or not, but
My HX Stomp, this black one in the top left corner, has a built-in noise gate. So that means when the volume is below a certain amount, it cuts out that hiss, which can be just really great if you have noisy equipment, especially if it's old or cheap equipment. This wouldn't be like the first thing I maybe would buy, but it can be helpful if you're dealing with like a lot of noise. So this one, the boost, I actually use my compressor like a boost, and boost just means you're boosting the signal either momentarily. So a good example would be if somebody needs to solo, you could press a boost and it would boost them up for a period of time. It can also, into a tube amplifier, gives the pleasant sound of like overdriven distortion. And then a volume expression pedal, this guy over here, which is on the screen, and then on my bottom right, you can see that was what was glitching out, why it wasn't loud enough, is my cheap old one that needs to be fixed. It's a rocking pedal. You'll see my foot. It might make noise, so sorry. Can you hear that pretty good through the?
Yeah, that sounded great.
Okay. And then, yeah, so that could be cool because you can also do sweeping effects. And if you put on like a big reverb or something, it has the ability to sound really big and atmospheric and almost like a synthesizer or something. Yeah, so let's just keep trucking along here so we can spend more time answering questions and stuff later.
Yeah.
I'm going to switch over so that I can show them the EQ and wah-wah and stuff.
Cool. So we talked briefly about EQ, but that, as opposed to volume, is kind of equaling out the thresholds of frequencies. So instead of loud or soft, it's kind of editing out high, mid, low. A lot of times that kind of sounds like a filter as well. So if you edit out all the highs, it's going to sound very not as like tinny, and it'll sound more subdued. And then he was just playing some wah-wahs, which is my favorite sound I think ever. But that, yeah, Let's Get It On is a good example. But a wah is kind of like a very controlled filter. So it basically is a controlled EQ in the sense that, or filter in the sense that it is a measured, every time you hit the string or make the sound, it's going to filter that off in the same pattern. So it gets that wah, wah kind of effect. That's a very technical term. Similar things for like talk boxes as well can kind of have that sound, and they mimic kind of the area, the vowel shape that you're making with your mouth. So if you use a microphone, this is a feature that is on a lot of synthesizers as well. We have a small one that we use pretty frequently with a client we have who is minimally verbal, and we use it to kind of encourage vocal production and singing and engagement by kind of allowing him to create sounds that are cool, but they sound like the consonant of his mouth, basically. Cool. So here's some modulation things as well. So these probably chorus you heard demonstrated in the Nirvana track earlier, but it has kind of a delayed double effect with some pitch variations as well. So it's a pretty sound that you hear pretty often, especially even with acoustic guitars. Chorus is often kind of applied. So this is what chorus sounds like. In the same kind of vein are flangers and phasers that have similar modulation effects with pitch and waveforms. They always sound a little bit similar to me, but the flanger has that more delayed and doubled, while the phaser is actively kind of phasing in and out with the waves. And then after those two, something that's really, really common is also that vibrato and tremolo as well, which you all know what vibrato is probably. Same thing, but it is applied to that guitar effect. And tremolo is also very similar to that. A very slowed down vibrato. And then tremolo, as opposed to pitch variation, is volume variation. So it's rapidly cutting out the volume and bringing it down, then bringing it back up again. Here's some of the kind of the last demonstrations a little bit, but these are very, very common and also pretty easy to wrap your head around. Like we said earlier, reverb kind of simulates that room, and the different parameters on reverb can affect what kind of room it sounds like. It could be this giant hall or more of a small room reverb, and you can see that's kind of the figure that's there as a reverb pedal. So you can alter how long the sound lasts, which is the decay, and then also how much reverb you're getting, just simply how much, and then also dampen or brighten it as well. And then delay is what it sounds like. It delays the sound to many different ends. There's a little bit of delay. Tapping the tempo of the delay as well. So similar, if you were in the presentation earlier when we were kind of talking about tapping the time of the arpeggiator. This is the same thing. So that HX stomp pedal he's using allows for tempo modulation, so that the reverb is either, the delay is either very slowly after the initial hit, or it comes very fast. Beautiful. Chris is the edge of electric tech music therapy, indeed, says Brian.
I guess so. Last but not least, just like here's some catch-all things that you might want to look at. Amp and cabinet simulator. So nowadays you don't even have to have an amplifier. I'm not using actually an amplifier right now. I'm using PA monitors. PA monitors are one of those things that usually everybody can get donated. Somebody's giving away a PA monitor, or you can buy them for cheap or something. So I have two PA monitors, and I'm using the HX Stomp as a multi-effects unit. So it acts as my delays, my reverbs, and it acts like an amplifier. So that's what's the black pedal in the top left corner is what that is. I know the camera is not the best angle. There we go. The one that's blinking with the red light. As well as there's amplifiers now, like the Boss Katana, which has a lot of those same features, but it is an amplifier, and it also has a USB out that can be an interface to your computer. Other utility effects that you can see on the board in the top right is a tuner. It tells me what note I'm playing. I can tune. It's simple enough, right? Buffers and preamps. That might be a good first step if you feel like you're doing something that I'm just using my input of my acoustic guitar. That might be something that it's just like a sound enhancer. Buffers are the same thing. When you start using long cables, the signal gets degraded over time. This is kind of like the nerdy extra stuff. I'm happy to talk about that if y'all want. And then there's like loopers, and what I like to call like whimsy devices, like my Chase Bliss Mood. Let me show you. It just does like crazy things. You can turn the tremolo off. I'm just going to press things. So I can create like crazy spooky sounds. I don't have any of the pretty sounds it can make pulled up. It does like a lot of things. So lastly is that idea of an actual pedal board, and all that is chaining them together. And usually instead of a bunch of single power supplies, you use something like a big power supply that has little individual outs. This is another thing that if you find yourself down the rabbit hole, we're more than happy to walk you through this because there's a lot of choices. And please hit me up if you are going down this rabbit hole for yourself, even if you're like, hey, I'm playing in this band and I'm trying to put stuff together, yada, yada. And then lastly, instead of the big cables, you can see these are called patch cables. There's power going to the actual stand is an accessory. The Velcro that goes on is an accessory, things like that. So special devices. So are you going to need an audio interface? Are you going to need any amplifiers or maybe an iRig device for Apple products that you can plug straight into like an iPad or something? And we talked about this earlier, the jam stick. So we're not going to spend a ton of time on it here because I want to give y'all some time to ask questions and chat and stuff. But this is a MIDI guitar that we talked about earlier. It's amazing. I love it. It's like my favorite thing. Let's just keep trucking on though. So transfers. This is what I kind of wanted to end on. So MIDI applications. So you can recreate I think this is all important for if you are trying to do recreative music making. This can be a lot more authentic way to go about that. I don't think it's always the most important thing, but it could be important to the people that you're working with. You could be working to increase confidence with someone and they're learning a new thing. I've done live looping, so that's the only thing we haven't demonstrated yet. I've done live looping with seniors in a dementia unit, and I have live looped with myself, and I can even play a loop, set it down, and go around and give hand over hand assistance all by myself. Like the music keeps going. Look, mom, no hands. Very great. I find that a good go-between for the benefits of recorded music. I know that means you can go around and do things, but you're controlling the things that you're doing. The only problem is I put a link in the thing. You got to get good at looping. Whatever you do, it's not the first time you go to do it, you're going to feel like you hate yourself. So just know that it is a skill in its own. Clinical music lessons. These are another cool thing. Team building, building a loop together. Authentic music making, so group cohesion, confidence, and respect for each other through recreative music. They could be producing songs, songwriting. And then, like we talked about earlier, our kiddo that has selective mutism, we just plugged an XLR to 1/4-inch cable in the guitar pedals, and we tried just him making sounds through the guitar pedals with his mouth, even just making sounds and being not afraid in that environment to try something out. I'm going to keep going. Oh, here's an example. I'm going to show you a loop in a minute. So here's a bunch of resources. Remember, Jamstick said that they'll give it all music therapists using the code AMTA25. They can get 25% off all their products, including that studio MIDI guitar. So you can get it for like $200 off, which is crazy. It is well worth it. This was for AMTA. This has nothing to do with you, the conference code. Lastly, these are all, I just think it was awesome because me as a music therapist, I just reached out to a lot of these companies that I already like JHS, Chase Bliss, Strymon, Pedal Train, Jamstick. They literally thought that what we were doing as music therapists was so cool that they said, here's some guitar pedals, tell people about them and all that kind of stuff. So I just want you all to know that people care about what we're doing. Other musicians care about what we're doing. The music industry cares about what we're doing. Jamstick wants our input. So how do we make things better for music therapists? So just know that people give a crap about what you're doing. Other musicians, you might feel like whatever. I know music therapists feel a lot of different ways about what they do and their identity and things like that. But people do care. Let me exit out of this and quit the screen share and make sure I had no yeah. So what questions do people have? Comment on the order. Okay, great.
Kelly was also wondering if you could demonstrate some overdrive distortion one more time too.
Yes, I can do that. So the order is, there's not like a hard and fast rule, but that would be it's kind of like a nerd topic to dive into. So we can dive into that later if you want, Tyler. But basically the idea is a common idea would be going from things like your tuners, your volume, things that affect volume, into like more analog pedals. So drive pedals, overdrive, distortion, fuzz. Sometimes you want to put your fuzz at the very beginning just because they're finicky. Then usually modulation goes after that. And then usually delay into reverb. That's like a very typical, but you can do whatever you want. But that's just like the more like conventional way. But that is the cool part about the physical pedals is you can do whatever you want to them. So let's, instead of showing it on the pedal board, what overdrive and distortion is, let's go into GarageBand again and show you all how to play with that. So how do I apply this if I don't want to buy hundreds of dollars worth of things, which I don't want you to do unless you're like ready to dive in the deep end like me. Anybody have any other questions so far? Good. Let me move this to the other screen here. I'm going to zoom this in, and then I'm going to screen share. So this is what we didn't have time to do at AMTA. But so some of you all that were in the, or SER rather, this is some of y'all that were in our 11 o'clock. Here's the beat that we made. You hear this, right? Thumbs up. Actually, let's see. I want to do this here and make this beat slightly cooler. Yeah, let's cut it. Let's cut it right here, I think. Yeah, something like that. And then we're going to add a bass hit. I wonder if that whoosh. Oh, here, there we go. Let's add this right here. Okay, so here's what we're going to do here. We're going to make this bass slap harder because people always want their bass to slap, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to click on this button on this track. And when you click on this little toolbar button, you can see this thing that says plugins. So somebody earlier was asking about how do I get all the plugins to show up? So what's already on this channel? There's EQ and compression. And I don't know if it's grayed out, it's not even on. So let's see what's going on in this EQ plugin. Nothing. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to add some distortion here. Let's go to, well, we're going to start with overdrive, and I'm going to show you the difference. We're going to loop this. All right. So when I turn it off, it's going to be just what you heard. All right, now we're going to add this. We're going to look at some of these settings. So overdrive first is going to increase the volume. Sometimes when it increases the volume, you're going to think it sounds better just because it's louder. So sometimes you need to turn it down a little. So what that did was just increase, like it's driving the signal harder. But let's say we want to try something, we want to do hard. Yeah, there we go. Now that beat sounds better. Let's hear. Let's take this solo off. So now we got. Yeah. Great. Now what we're going to do is compress the crap out of it too. So compressor, remember, it's taking the audio signal and going, whoosh, it's squashing it down. So it makes the highs softer, and it makes it makes it do whatever you tell it to do. But generally a compressor brings the quiet parts of a signal up, and the loud parts of a signal it chops off and only makes it go so loud. But let's do drums. We're going to do, where's like a good kick? Slammed kick. Yeah, that sounds like what we want. plugging their speakers, so we're doing great. What does it sound like? Let's do some other things. What are some other effects that would be helpful to look at? I can't see the chat right now. Darn. Hold on. The chat is on my other screen that I just blocked. Let's see.
It'd be great to also show that online pedal board, like the pedal board in GarageBand.
Yes, cool. Good idea.
But yeah, someone also.
What about EQ? Great idea, Rebecca. So let's say we wanted to do something cool, like a filter on this harp. Let's add an EQ. So EQ, oh, wrong one. EQ here. This already has an EQ setting. So let's listen to what happens when we turn it on and off. It's going to be kind of subtle. So it's just accenting some things and taking some of the other, it's taking off some of the high frequencies, the really high frequencies. This is the part where the human ear is very sensitive. So it's kind of bringing that part. So this part sticks out a little bit, and it's boosting some of these lower, pretty much bass frequencies. Bass is a little bit more here-ish, but this is kind of still the heart of what I'd call bass, up to about like here. But let's play with some other ones. Let's do voice. Let's change it to a brassy vocal. All right, I'll play with some stuff so you can hear what it does. So that sound in techno is called a filter sweep. That's what's happening. The filter is going. It's peaking. I have it way too loud, so I'm sorry if that's hurting your ears. But let's see. I'm not sure. I wonder if there's a filter, a sweeping filter. Yeah, auto filter. Okay. Let's see. Moving bandpass. There we go. So those are some other cool things you can do. Let's see, what are other fun effects? Oh, the amps and pedals. So this is cool in GarageBand. So one cool thing to do is now you have a pedal board. You didn't have to go spend a ton of money. You've got one right in GarageBand here. So this is show all, but you can say, let's pretend I want to add distortion here. I'm going to add this fuzz face. They even made it look like the fuzz face guitar pedal. So but let's say, no, I don't want that. I want chorus. Let's say that's not doing it. I don't like the retro. I want something more. Oh, it's because we got that. No, the filter's not even going. So you can see there's all kinds of stuff you can play with here. And then this is the same thing though. We can go boop, boop, and we can create our own pedal board.
I think you can also save that preset too. So like,
Yeah. So let's say you love this, you go save as my super sick pedal board. And you'll make the little rock star emoji. So now let's pretend I take that off and I open it up again. I want to do pedal board. And then I go down here and click my super sick pedal board. There's already complete pedal boards. Let's look at cool jazz. So you get the idea. Anybody have any, is this video that you shared? Let's see. In the video, how was he looping multiple instruments? The voice one where he was doing the crazy thing with his voice.
Where he was all the guitar, he was like a beautiful guitarist. I was just curious how he then also incorporated the toy piano, and then he incorporated the keyboard. Is that because there was like a pedal?
The YouTube video?
I think so, yeah.
With the guy that's Danish, he had the nice accent.
Yes.
Yeah, he was probably using something like GarageBand or something. But let me show a quick demo. I love you. Yeah, great. Yeah, definitely slaps. But let's do a quick demo of looping stuff just for people to get their feet wet a little bit there. I'll show you probably if I was going to buy like one pedal for like looping type purposes, there's a couple that I would definitely recommend. And the Ditto is a common one that's kind of cheap. But I've also got this one here that's kind of a classic. It's called the DL4. I can't bring it too far because it's connected to power. But this one has 4 buttons here, and let's loop some. Let's get off the crazy delay setting. Turn the reverb down a little bit. All right. Something's going crazy over here. Hold on. Let's just turn that off. Oh, it's this pedal. Sorry. There we go. It's like, what's that crazy sound? So this pedal, it is record. So let's go. No hands, it's going by itself, not playing the guitar. So that part's going. No guitar. And I can add in the lead line just for fun. The cool thing about this one is now it's playing half speed. Now it's playing in reverse. You know, just because. And then I can also do it to just play once. So I can go. And it's done. The cool thing about this one too is it also has a microphone input right here and a little level, so you can simultaneously use it with a microphone. So pretty nifty. It's called the DL4. I bought that with my own money. So, this is not a internal or not an endorsement of them by any means. Select a mic. Oh, I'm trying to select a speaker. Other than I just think they're cool. So, and the Zoom bell was in the right key. Great. That's what I planned. Cool. Well, we got to.